Welcome to How Pop Music Works Live. Today we're talking about Kung Fu Fighting, a one-hit wonder from Jamaican singer Carl Douglas, written to capitalize on the Hong Kong martial arts film craze at the time in the 70s. I'm going to talk about the chords, the melody, and the arrangement, and really what makes this such an improbable hit. So we're starting in D major. And it's also our key, so D major, we start on a D6 chord with one of the all-time great wordless vocal hooks performed a-tempo with nothing marking the beat over 2 bars of a D6 chord in the strings. So just the hook first. On just a whoa. 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 Now, in the strings here, we have them playing this lovely chord, D6. So from what I can hear, something approximating D, F sharp, A, and B. So coming in quietly. And then we have... And then we also have some decoration from what sounds in my ears like a chorused Fender Rhodes. Now the hook is just built on, like, pretty much the entire song is built on the D major pentatonic scale, and it goes up from 5 to 3. Then we skip 2, go to 3. And just swimming in the plate reverb that we hear on this, because it's the 70s, plate reverb is all the range. Just that whoa sounds amazing. It's one of my favorite parts of the song. So the second half, we have almost the same notes. We start on 5 again, but now we stop on that 2. And that is there because that matches with our second chord in E minor 7. So now let's go back to the strings. So we start out in this D6, and that for the second half, we're going up to this E minor 7 chord. And we got that again. And that sets up the pattern for nearly the entire song. We have one line over the 1 chord sounding nice and calm, and then a second one over E minor 7, our 2 chord, adding a bit of tension before we start the cycle all over again. And the first lesson we can take from this is this chord progression, just this 1, 2, is magic with the right melody over it, because it's not doing a lot. It's just 2 chords, and it's like the 1 and 2 chords, not even 1 and 5 or 1 and 4. But with good material over the top, it can vamp nearly endlessly to keep the song going. The intro, it also gives us a preview of the call and response that most people think of when they think of the song. Because we have this, we have the... That's our call. Boo-to-doo-doo. And then the first vocal line gets answered by the famous Asian riff. 2, 3, 4. That gets played by a flute at first, and then later by the flute and the strings, and sometimes the strings. Now, this melody, it has a long and messy history, particularly regarding to racism in cartoons and movies and other media. So I'm going to leave a link in the description that talks about that better than I can just live on camera here, and has the work of some people who have done great research into the origins and use and history of, again, what we call the Asian riff. I'd also suggest listening to a Chinese piece called Great Waves Washing the Sand that I learned about when I was studying ethnomusicology in grad school. And I'll also include a link to that. And it's an example of the kind of authentic Chinese instrumental music that something like the Asian riff was simplifying and mimicking, but not really nailing the depth of. So, yeah, like I said, I'll post links to both that in the description and you can check that out. That said, the riff is based on 3 notes, also in the D pentatonic scale: B, A, and F sharp, or 6, 5, and 3 from the D pentatonic scale, which fits perfectly with this D6 chord underneath. Then the second line gets its own response. We have do 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 do, and we have this descending line that goes from G, and it's this little 3-note motif that makes its way down from G to 4, or to, start over again. Makes its way down from G, or 4, then down to 3, then down to 2, and then finishes on 6. A classic open-ended note choice that makes us want to hear more after that. Okay, so we got that. So we got our 2 chords, we got our vocal hook, and we kind of have an idea of what's going on in the strings and the piano and the flute, the Rhodes piano and the flute, which is all we've been hearing so far. Now we have our worldwide smash title hook. Everybody was kung fu fighting. It's just the vocal hook over the same chords with more words and more notes added, but it sets the scene immediately. Just, everybody was kung fu fighting. It's as effective in its own way as one of my other all-time favorite opening lines: I saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand. That's from Werewolves of London. Maybe I'll do that one someday. But Warren Zevon is great. The second line is a new response to that first melody, and it's a descending line that usually, but not always, starts up on B, the 6th of the scale, which is kind of always shorthand for the emotion note. I've talked about this in other videos. It will come up a lot. And Douglas sings it differently almost every time. The gist of it is, and other times it sounds like the second half of the vocal hook. It sounds like, or, and just every line in the chorus it's pure imagery and emotion. Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kicks were fast as lightning. That was a little bit frightening. They had expert timing. Just like, it paints a picture of, again, something out of a 70s Hong Kong martial arts film, or, as they called it then, a kung fu movie, about what's going on. And yeah, it just throws us into this. And we'll talk about now what's going on underneath that. So underneath, the drums come in with the disco beat, like, and then we have the guitars, which the main guitar adds some funky chordal strumming on the chord. So like, got that? And there's a second guitar you can hear that's adding just kind of like a wah chicka at the end of kind of each of those things. So, And then underneath that, we have the pianos kind of doing this. Again, I didn't listen to it like deep enough to hear the exact thing, but kind of like something like. Just kind of padding that out underneath the guitar. And then the bass is just kind of doing like a. Just kind of outlining the root 5th and 6th, or in the case of the second chord, the 7th of the 1 and the 2 chord. This is a good time to mention that this song was recorded in an incredible 2 takes in 10 minutes that were left over from a 3-hour session, based on lyrics that Douglas already had written for a potential song, and that the producer set to chords and a melody kind of on the spot as the session was rolling on, because they needed a B-side. And it wasn't supposed to be like a hit B-side. It was just supposed to be a disposable B-side, because they already thought they had the next hit they were going to record on the A side of the record. But the label, Pi Records, they hear this and they're just like, we got to release this as an A-side, Kung Fu Fighting. We think this is going to be a hit. And the producer's just like, oh, I don't really see it, but it's your money, sure. And it goes out and it dies like 5 weeks on radio. No one's playing it. No one is giving it any attention. And they assume it's just another dud, like failed record. We took a chance on Kung Fu Fighting. Oh, well. And then the clubs pick it up because it's the 70s. That's how a lot of records broke. And it blows up overnight, goes #1 all over the world. And I feel like that's a story you really like to hear. Like something that, was written just kind of as a throwaway, but that, the composer, Douglas, was kind of excited and interested in. And the label takes a chance on it, and they think it's a failure, and it turns out to be just this smash hit. And it is a one-hit wonder. Douglas never reached anywhere near that height again, but it's kind of an incredible story. So let's talk about the verse. So the verse is a compressed version of the chorus. So now the verse, instead of going, 1 bar, 2 bars, 1 bar, 2nd bar, it takes the melody and it pulls the response and the extra bar out of there, and they're like do 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 3 4 do 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 do. So that's our idea. So we use the lyrics in the remake here. You're a diamond in the rough, a brilliant ball of clay. You could be a work of art if you just go all the way. And it goes on like that. And so it's like a tightly crammed version of the chorus, because the lines are just going back to back on each other. We're going 1, 2, 1, 2. And that lasts for 8 bars, and at the end of the 8th bar, we get one of only a couple instances where we hear a 5 chord in this song, because most of it is just the 2 chords, 1 and 2. So in this case, we use the line here. Let's see. What it take for you to break? I believe that you can bend. Not only do you have to fight, but you have got to win. Got this 5 chord, take us back to 1. Everybody was kung fu fighting. And this is important because it proves that you can get away with only using a 5 chord very, very sparingly, and still have a mega pop hit. Or you could be Taylor Swift, as we've covered in a previous video, and not use a 5 chord at all and still have a mega hit. And this is where the call and response that we heard in the introduction becomes standard, because that first time the chorus comes in, everybody was kung fu fighting, those kicks were fast as lightning, or those cats were fast as lightning. the strings and the flute aren't there, just the rhythm section. But then when we come back, we get everybody was kung fu fighting. Those cats were fast as lightning. And that same thing, though it was a little bit frightening, it's fought with expert timing. And that establishes the pattern for the rest of the song. Now, the second verse and chorus are the same deal, almost verbatim, minus variations from having live players rather than loops. Great part about recording in the 70s, and really most of the history of recording until relatively recently. Then after the second verse and second chorus, or like really the second verse and third chorus, we get a bridge based on our introduction, but it has our first variation. So we have whoa ho ho ho, but this time the bass is playing a B on bottom and outlining a B chord on the bottom. So whoa ho ho ho. And it does that for 2 bars because we're back to the vocal hook form. Whoa ho ho ho. And combined with the notes in the strings and the piano, which are still playing that D6 chord, well, just by putting the B on the bottom and outlining that 7, A, and 5, F sharp, now it sounds like, and it is effectively a B minor 7 chord, which is our minor 6, in place of the D6, our 1. And this adds some contrast because the B minor sounds kind of ominous, even though we have the same melody. And now, we still have the 2 on the bottom, the E minor 7. And with the 2 minor chords together, this sounds quite a bit darker than what we're used to hearing, which is just one tweak, and even keeping the melody the same is a really cool effect in that this kind of sunny song, even though we have a minor chord in there, but it doesn't sound that dark. Just coming back and forth with the 1 added 6 there, but now with the... like I said, it just has that darker minor sound. And we have that rooted in this kind of relative minor key, this kind of temporary B minor 7 to E minor 7, or like a minor 1-4, up until bar 8 does this thing where it's kind of does this thing. It's like, and then we're back to the chorus again. Everybody was kung fu fighting. We have our chorus, we have our call and response, we have all the things we're expected. And then we have our outro, which now has everybody grooving along. It has the whoa ho ho ho. And now Carl Douglas has this new ad lib he's doing. He's doing this. Keep on, keep on, keep on, keep on, keep on. And is ad libbing things along that over the whoa ho ho ho. And the flute's going, the strings are going, and the rhythm section's going, and the overdubbed vocal hook's going in the background, and it fades out. It's great. So yeah, I love that record. I love Kung Fu Panda. It's one of my favorite kids movies of the past 20 years or so. I think it's awesome. And yeah, Kung Fu Fighting, I think there's a reason why it still gets played and sampled and referenced over 50 years later now, is because it's this magic little gem of a hit that no one expected to go anywhere, and it's great. In conclusion, there's a few things we can learn from this. One is that if you have a strong hook, even if it's just a few pentatonic notes, sometimes that and 2 chords are all you need. Another thing is that something as simple as compressing the structure and the harmonic rhythm, so going from that just changing it to. Can create a whole new segment out of the same material. And the other little changes like swapping in a minor chord or changing a bass note under the existing chords can do the same thing. So maybe like take that 1-2 vamp and temporarily change it to a 6-2 vamp, and you have a new chord progression to make a bridge or do some kind of interlude or something else with. That was our lesson on Kung Fu Fighting. I hope you learned something from it and enjoyed a window into the disco revival of my youth. That's probably also why I'm fond of the song. If you want to support what I do, please like, subscribe, and comment on this video, and go check out my Patreon in the description below. Please check out my original channel, How Pop Music Works, if you're not already a subscriber. And until next time, take care of yourself, take care of someone else, and have a good day.